If you ever feel out of control around food, you're not alone, and you're in the right place to learn practical, no-nonsense information about why you binge and how to stop. Binge eating does not mean that something is wrong with you. It's a natural but primitive brain response that you can correct. If you're ready for change, sign up for the Brain Over Binge self-paced online course for less than $20 per month. And if you feel you need personalized support, we also offer one-on-one coaching and group coaching. To learn more, go to brainoverbinge.com/subscribe. And I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to the Brain Over Binge podcast, where you learn a simple, brain-based approach to ending binge eating. I'm your host, Kathryn Hansen, and I'm the author of Brain Over Binge and the Brain Over Binge Recovery Guide. If you're new to this podcast and this approach, I want to encourage you to start with my free ebook, The Brain Over Binge Basics, which you can get through the link in the show description or on the homepage of brainoverbinge.com. That ebook will give you a jump start in learning to see your urges to binge with a new perspective and help you learn to stop acting on them. Today, Coach Julie is here to discuss a topic with me that comes up a lot in Brain Over Binge group coaching and in her one-on-one coaching sessions. And we hope that you can apply what you learn here today to your own recovery and also to your life after you stop binge eating. So let's dive into this conversation. Hi, Julie. I'm so glad to have you here.
Hi, Kathryn. So glad to be with you.
Yeah, today we have a topic that we really are excited to bring you, and we're calling it full permission and full pleasure in recovery, and really in life in general. So there's many different areas that we're going to talk about allowing yourself to have full permission and full pleasure. So Julie, can you introduce the topic?
Yeah, this is something that I coach on all the time. It's a way of approaching recovery and life that I think might be new for some of the people who are listening. Of course, my clients are all very familiar with it because I talk about it all the time. But, it's this idea of having what we truly want in all areas of our life and really owning it and then giving ourselves that stamp of approval, like full permission, full pleasure for this part of my life. And I really think that it shifts everything when people embrace this idea.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about it first in the area of eating, because I know that is a place where this idea comes up a lot.
Yeah. So with food, with fullness, this is an area where I really encourage people to dive in. It's this idea of having what you truly want. So foods you love that love you back in amounts that leave you sated. And by sated, I mean full. So again, it's good to be full, enjoying that feeling of fullness, and doing those things with full permission and full pleasure. So that when you have the meal that you really love and you eat until you're full and then you're done and you say, that was delicious, that hit the spot, that you truly enjoy it. And then there's no backstory. There's no, oh my God, why did I eat that? I shouldn't have eaten that. Oh my goodness, what's going on? And then I've blown it and I might as well binge. No, instead it's, that was so good. That was just right. And then you move on with your day because you've given yourself full permission and you've had full pleasure with the meal. So now you can get on to life.
Yeah. And it's such a contrast to how a lot of people who struggle with binging approach meals, because a lot of times there can be a fear, there can be a desire to restrict, or thinking, oh, I shouldn't be eating this. I shouldn't have that. I should have this instead. Just a lot of overthinking. But when you sit down at a meal with full permission to eat it and to take pleasure from it, it just changes the whole experience.
Exactly. And it's not just with eating, but it's eating until you're full. Instead of, oh my God, I should be leaving food over. I shouldn't eat so much. All of that. It's like, no, it's good to be full. I'm done. I'm good for now. And I know that I'll be good until my next meal so I can really focus on life.
Yeah. And I imagine that some listeners may be thinking, well, if I give myself permission, then I'm just going to overdo it. I'm going to overeat. I may binge. So, what would you say to that?
Yeah, I think it's completely the opposite. What if the opposite is true, right? Because if you have what you really want for your meal. And of course, I am not saying if you have celiac disease to eat gluten. That's not what I'm talking about, because you may love bread, but it doesn't love you back, right? But if you're giving yourself a plate of food that you love, that loves you back, and you eat it until you're full, and you eat it with full permission and full pleasure, you're not going to want to keep going. Because if you're not telling yourself the story, I really shouldn't have this, I should have that instead, but I don't really want this. Oh, well, I'll just have one little bite. Oh my God, I had one bite, so now I've blown it, so I might as well keep going. That's where all the madness comes from. That's where the desire to binge, to keep going, all of that happens there, because there is no permission. It's either eating furtively, eating sneakily, eating off of other people's plates, eating behind your own back, all of that, no permission, no pleasure. And, or I'm going to have this fake version of the thing that I really want because I really shouldn't have what I really want. And so then I'm not really satisfied. So then I just keep going and going and going and going.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to what you said about eating foods you love that love you back. And a binge or extreme overeating, that never loves you back. So giving yourself permission doesn't mean then you go into harmful behaviors. This is still a self-caring practice.
Absolutely. Because it's true pleasure. True pleasure. You love it before you have it. You love it while you're having it. You love it after you've had it. That's true pleasure versus a binge where maybe for a second in your thought, there's some pleasure there, but there's no pleasure after, ever, ever.
Yeah, and I really love how you teach your clients and members of the group to reclaim fullness and to really enjoy the feeling of fullness. We're supposed to feel full after a meal. Yeah, the feeling of fullness after a binge or after extreme overeating is very uncomfortable. It's very harmful. But the normal fullness after a meal, it's great. And you can learn to appreciate that and not feel bad about yourself after eating.
That's right. It's actually a wonderful feeling. It's good to be full. It means that you're sated, you're nourished, and you can get on with your day. You have the nourishment, the energy to do the things you need to do. Power foods for your power moves. You got a lot going on in your lives, and you want to be full and then get on with your day and not be like, oh, I hope I can make it till dinner. I don't know. I hope I can hold on. Because that's what happens when you're chronically under eating, and that's where the binging comes, because then a snack turns into a binge because you're so ravenous because you didn't eat enough at lunch.
Yeah. And we're often willing to give those we love permission. Like think of giving a plate of food to someone you love. Would you say, oh, you shouldn't eat that. You shouldn't eat that. No, you want to give them permission, give them pleasure. You want them to enjoy the food. So really trying to treat yourself the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's all really helpful surrounding the area of eating. What other areas can people use this idea of full permission and full pleasure?
It kind of goes everywhere with recovery, with life. I talk about it with movement, that you move in a way that you love, that loves you back for an amount of time that loves you back with full permission and full pleasure. And that you really own it. So, I was thinking about that amazing podcast you did the other day with the woman who
Sherry Shaban.
Yes, sorry. And it's like if you hate running and you're forcing yourself to do that, it's not going to love you back. Or if you like to take a light jog for 20 minutes, but you're like, I really should be running for an hour, it's not going to love you back. And you're going to get injured. So it's about moving in a way that you love, that loves you back with full permission and full pleasure, owning that. If you're a person who, I really love to take gentle strolls in nature, then do that. If you're somebody who loves to go to a kickboxing class because that gives you total pleasure, then do that without any shame, owning it, full permission, full pleasure.
Yeah. Exercise and fitness and movement is definitely an area that a lot of people can overthink it. And let's say the example of you love to go for gentle strolls in nature and you love that, but every time you do that, you think, oh, I should be working out harder. I should be doing something more strenuous. Then you're not going to enjoy it. You're not giving yourself that permission or that pleasure. And then you end up feeling worse afterward.
Exactly. Because the body knows, like if you're meant to be somebody who takes walks in nature and instead you're trying to go run for an hour every day, you're going to get injured. The body knows when something's not right for your body. There are people for whom running for hours is delightful. I mean, I'm not that person, but like, if that's your thing, okay, great. But if your thing is really, I love to take lovely walks, or I love to take dance classes, or I love to go tap dancing. I mean, whatever it is, right? find ways of moving that you really love for amounts of time that love you back.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that doesn't mean that you will never do anything strenuous. Some people like to do more intense workouts sometimes, and that's okay. In the moment, it might feel hard and you think, oh, like this isn't pleasurable in the moment, but it makes you feel good afterwards. So there's that balance that everyone has to find for themselves.
Yeah, I think the key is that there's pleasure around it. So
Yeah.
even if there's pleasure after, that's fine if you know that that pleasure is coming. But again, what's the intention behind it? Are you doing it because you think you should and you're punishing yourself? Or are you doing it because I actually really love this? I love the feeling of being strong. I love pushing myself in that way. Whatever it is.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, that distinction. What other areas could people use this?
Yeah. So another area that this comes up a lot in the group and a lot in my coaching is around rest and downtime. Taking rest is required for life.
Yeah.
It's required. And a lot of people will wind up overeating and binging because sitting down at the table is really the first time that they've actually let themselves rest at all in a day. And so instead of that false pleasure that keeps you at the table so you can stay seated, just stay seated. Stay seated. Give yourself permission and have the pleasure of looking out the window, staring at the clouds, doing nothing sometimes. It is okay. And when you do that with full permission and full pleasure, there's no need to keep eating as a way to get rest.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about this one a little more because I feel like it comes up a lot. And I love your example of someone who's so busy and they sit down to eat and they're finally sitting down and they feel like they need to keep eating to keep giving themselves the permission to sit down and rest. So it's almost like they can justify the rest as long as they're eating, but this is really faulty logic.
Yes. And I can think of many a night when my daughter was little and it was time to do bath and books and all of those things. And I would stay and binge in my kitchen as a way to avoid doing the second half of my evening because I really wanted to rest. And instead of just doing the second half of my evening, really attending to whatever my daughter's needs were and then giving myself a time to have a breather.
Yeah.
Right? It's that false break versus the real break that we all need. We are human beings, not human doings. And even though we all have a lot on our plates, I know you and I have a lot on our plates as parents and working and all of those things. And yet we all need to take a break and just do nothing. And that nothing is not even for self-care or for movement. It's not the nothing of meditation, none of that. It's really like truly nothing. And again, doing that with full permission and full pleasure, so important.
I can remember when I was caught up in the binge eating habit and I had a time where I felt like the only time I actually rested was after a binge. And it was not productive rest. It didn't actually help me because I felt awful. I couldn't get up and do things and I had to rest because I was so full. I felt so sick.
Oh, yes.
And I felt like that was the only time that I quote unquote allowed it because honestly, I couldn't do anything else. So really turning it around and giving yourself permission to have real rest and take pleasure from that, I think could be a game changer for a lot of people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And my question surrounding that too is I can imagine some people might be thinking, well, when I allow myself to rest, I just start thinking about food and then it's not relaxing. And I feel like that was true for me back when I was a binge eater because your brain, can associate downtime with, oh, I need to eat because you've made that connection in your brain. So I think I'd like to hear what you have to say to that, but I think you can learn to rest, learn to allow those urges to move through you. It's just habitual. It doesn't mean you need to do it. And you can learn to still take pleasure in the rest with those buzzing thoughts in your head. And then eventually they go away.
Yeah, I mean, 1,000,000%. And it's going to be uncomfortable at first. It's that productive discomfort of, I shouldn't be just sitting here. I shouldn't be resting. I need to keep doing. So there's going to be that piece of like, that's why the full permission comes in. It's like overtly saying every single day, I'm going to take 10 to 15 minutes to do nothing. And during that time, I'm going to be uncomfortable at first because it's new. I've never done this before. And I might get urges to eat because I've associated discomfort with eating as a way of soothing. And then that gets back to the first piece about full permission to eat adequately until you're full. right? Because then I'm full. So this is just an urge. And so it's very easy to expect and allow that urge and let it move through you
Yeah.
because again, you're going into it with eyes wide open. So I'm eating adequately. So I know any call to food is an urge. And then I'm doing something new, like giving myself permission to rest. So I'm going to expect and allow urges to come at that time for it to be uncomfortable to get up and move and or to get up and eat.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely breaking a lot of habits at one time. And I do
Yes.
think this whole idea of like you always have to be doing something, I do think it correlates highly with people who struggle with food because we tend to have more of a perfectionist personality, more anxious types. I know both you and I have struggled with that. I still struggle with that as far as like I'll be doing something because I have millions of things to do. And I think, oh, I should be doing something else or I should be doing something else. Like you think of all the things you need to do. And it's hard
Totally.
to really zone in on the one thing that you're doing. So I feel like this idea can really help people even beyond their struggle with food.
Absolutely. No question about that. Yeah.
So we've talked about exercise, we've talked about rest, we've talked about eating. Are there any other areas we can apply this?
There are so many. So even with having learning moments, the idea of trying something new and giving yourself full permission to have learning moments around it, as in to not do it perfectly, to not be an expert right out the bat, figuring out your formula for food, for movement, for rest. All of these things are messy. They are uncomfortable. So giving yourself full permission to be a learner. That is
Yeah.
very uncomfortable. And yet it's a huge act of kindness. And when you do that, then you allow the safety to grow and learn and try and tweak and adapt, which is what recovery is, which
Yeah.
is what life is, right? But you have to do that with full permission too.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I thought of the example as you were talking of we don't drop our kids off at school and say, you better do everything right the first time. Like the first time you learn math, you better get every problem right. No, you're not going to do that. So give yourself permission to learn. That's really great.
Yeah. And another area is with celebrating. I'm a big fan, and here's my bell, right? Like, got to celebrate, but you've got to celebrate with full permission and full pleasure too, because it's uncomfortable to learn to celebrate when you're an adult. It's like little kids are great at doing it, but as we get older, we think, oh, I shouldn't be bragging, or I shouldn't be talking about myself in this way. Or if I say that I did something well, it might go wrong, or that wasn't really such a big deal. So I shouldn't, all of that. It's like, no, celebrate hard with full permission and full pleasure. And side benefit is you are reinforcing what you want for yourself. You're solidifying those new neural pathways. So keep celebrating yourself. And when you shine, everyone shines. So you're actually encouraging other people and inspiring them. So own those wins, every single one of them.
For sure. And I know that's something you are really great at as far as in the group and your one-on-one clients as well, but like really having every group member celebrate themselves and celebrate each other as well. And we're often so much better at it when it's for someone else, but we need to learn to turn that celebration toward ourselves as well.
That's right. Doing it and enjoying the feeling of it, because it's going to be uncomfortable at first. So expect it to be uncomfortable. You might feel like cringing at first, like, oh, I shouldn't really be telling you this.
Yeah.
But no, yes, you should. And we're all going to be so happy for you. And then we're going to be like, if they can do it, I can do it. And so then it's this beautiful cycle of positive returns.
Yeah. We all can inspire each other. And I know that's a big part of the group is just celebrating each other and letting that be a motivation for yourself. Because gosh, if anyone can do this, you can too. And I know Julie and I feel that way. Like we were in a place at one point where we felt like we could never overcome this. And we're here today to say that, if we can do it, you absolutely can as well.
That's right. Absolutely. 1,000,000%.
I mean, this has all been really helpful. Are there any other things surrounding full permission and pleasure?
I think it's just actively bringing this into your life. Like, I just encourage everyone to really think about the areas where you could really start giving yourself a stamp of approval. Own what you own. Be who you are, whatever your personality type is. If you're an introvert, an extrovert, if you like to abstain or moderate, whatever it is, own all the facets of you with full permission and full pleasure.
Something that popped into my head right now is like, it sort of grounds you. Like, I'm here now. This is what I'm doing now. I'm allowing myself to do it. And it really just puts you where you are in the present moment. And I think you make so much better decisions from there rather than thinking about all the things that may have gone wrong in the past or what you're worried about in the future. Like you're here now, giving yourself permission, taking pleasure in the moment. And I just feel like that ultimately benefits your recovery.
Absolutely. Because also it's like, I've made this decision. This is my choice. I have chosen this, and I'm thus going to enjoy it with that permission, with that pleasure. And then there won't be any extra brain noise, so I can get on with the rest of my day. Because that's the beauty of recovery, is that freedom, that peace, reclaiming access to your brain. Instead of second guessing every single thing or worrying like, well, they do it this way, so I should do it that way. And it's all gone because it's no, this is who I am. This is how I like to eat. This is how I like to move. This is how I like to spend my time. This is how I like to rest. Even recovery, full permission and full pleasure around how you do recovery. Do you want to be in a group? Do you want a one-on-one coach? Do you just want to read a book? Do you want Kathryn's audio course? Do you want to do all of those things? Do you need to write things down every day? Do you hate writing things down every day? Whatever it is, own it with full permission and full pleasure. You are on your journey and it is perfectly right for you.
It ties back to giving yourself permission to learn along the way, because what you decide is right now, it could evolve, and you just continuously get that feedback and then own your decisions going forward.
Totally.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Julie. This has been amazing, and I'm so glad to have you here.
My pleasure.
You have permission to come back anytime.
Oh, great.
If you want more support, encouragement, and helpful strategies from Coach Julie, you can join Brain Over Binge group coaching anytime at brainoverbinge.com/group. You can also book a one-on-one coaching session at brainoverbinge.com/1-on-1-coaching, and those links are also in the show description. You can also check out my self-paced online course, which you get access to if you join group coaching, or you can subscribe to the course separately. You can learn more about the course and how it can help you at brainoverbinge.com/subscribe. Thank you so much for listening today. I applaud you for your continued commitment to stopping binge eating for good. I want to encourage you and remind you that you have the power to change your brain and live a binge-free life. The Brain Over Binge podcast is produced and recorded by Brain Over Binge Recovery Coaching, LLC. All work is copyrighted by Brain Over Binge Recovery Coaching, LLC, and all rights are reserved. As a disclaimer, the hosts of the Brain Over Binge podcast are not professional counselors or licensed healthcare providers, and this podcast is not a substitute for medical advice or any form of professional therapy. Eating disorders can have serious health consequences, and you are strongly advised to seek medical attention for matters relating to your health. Please get help when you need it, and good luck on your journey. Need more help? You can find all of our current and upcoming options for support at brainoverbinge.com.